off a busy July 4th weekend, which is really good to see. And let's hope and pray that this Independence Day provided a launching point for better news, better health, and a strong rebound. Speaking of Independence Day, kudos to the town of Hilton Head Island for their increase in trash recovery and preparation for the weekend at Island Beaches. Also, want to give a shout out this morning to the volunteers from Deep Well, who on Sunday morning, which was July 5th, did trash removal from the beaches. So, thank you to those volunteers and the Deep Well organization for doing that. Quick update from what your chamber team's been doing, along with the town staff and volunteers this last weekend. We continue to distribute free masks at grocery stores again. We also distributed information reminding visitors and residents to respect and protect our low country environment. In addition to that, the Chamber has distributed materials to our hotels and our home and villa rental companies and other businesses to pass along to their guests, encouraging visitors to leave nothing behind but their footprints on our beaches and to respect our health and safety laws along with the environment. We were certainly pleased to see shoppers complying with the town of Bluffton and town of Hilton Head Island ordinances, just as they were pleased to see us engaged in providing masks again for residents and visitors. We'll continue our mask distribution in Bluffton and on Hilton Head Island in the coming weeks, so be on the watch for a place near you. Our nation and our region continue to pivot, and it seems we adapt and change almost daily as we learn more about this virus. And that's why we continue to hold our weekly Tele-Town halls to hear the latest developments and how they're impacting our lives and our economy. I'm pleased to kick off today's call with somebody who's been serving our community in Columbia and with boots on the ground here in the Low Country. He has led the charge for increased testing, and thanks to his cooperative efforts with DHEC, drive-through testing has become available to thousands of residents in our area. In addition to the proactive COVID testing initiative, yesterday we received great news from the State Infrastructure Bank on approving $120 million for the Hilton Head Bridge project, as well as funding for the new Exit 3 that has been talked about for so many years. And that's those two things are certainly in no small part to his efforts on behalf of Beaufort County, and we certainly thank and appreciate his representation. Let's welcome State Senator Tom Davis. Tom, thanks for being with us this morning, and we look forward to hearing your update.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me. And I'll start with what you just said. I mean, it was a huge win for Beaufort and Jasper counties yesterday when the State Infrastructure Bank approved a $120 million grant for the Hilton Head bridges and also a grant to help a new Exit 3 in Jasper County. And that really, I can't say enough about our local elected officials, town of Hilton Head Island, Beaufort County, our state delegation. We all came together on that. It's important to remember we were competing with applications from all over the state, and State Infrastructure Bank dollars are finite, especially right now with the budget crunch in Columbia. So it just really speaks to, Beaufort County really getting the kind of representation, getting the kind of clout up in Columbia that our region is going to need in the next few years. So that was really a good piece of news yesterday. In regard to the COVID-19 testing, and that's an ongoing thing, Bill, we've already had in the last couple of weeks 3 large testing events. We had 2 COVID-19 drive-through events on Hilton Head at the Hilton Head High School. I think the very first one we had 900 tests. The second one we had 1,525 tests. And then just last week we had a drive-through community test at USCB Bluffton. And what I've emphasized in setting these things up and working with DHEC officials is that these testing events can't be just one-offs. They have to be part of a recurring, testing pattern, throughout Beaufort County in all regions, and just the way we've been working at, Bill, is sort of have 4 geographic regions: Hilton Head Island, the Bluffton Sun City area, Ladies Island and St. Helena Island, and Burton and Beaufort. So those 4 areas over the next 2 months, I would like to have 1 test a week on a rotating geographic basis. And so that encompasses 9 tests that we need. We've already got 4 testing events pretty much nailed down, and I'm going to go ahead and share them with you right now. July 15th at Ladies Island Middle School, July 22 at Bluffton High School, July 29 at Battery Creek High School, and August 5 at Hilton Head High School. Now, those haven't been finalized yet, but we're almost there. And I'm seeking to confirm that today with DHEC. As soon as we have those 4 testing events nailed down, we'll start to social media, advertise, send out emails, again, promote community awareness of those opportunities. But we're still pushing for 5 additional tests so that we have, again, once a week for the months of July and August throughout Beaufort County.
Tom, that's terrific news, and we thank you for fighting so hard for that. We have a question this morning from Eleanor, and Eleanor's asking us, what is the possibility of doing group testing like I've been reading about in other places?
Well, I'm not sure what by group testing, but one of the things that's being discussed, Bill, is there's been a time lag between when tests are taken and when the results are reported. The lab capacity at DHEC is being overwhelmed. And so what other states are doing, and I think what South Carolina will soon do, is what's called pool testing, where you'll take maybe 10 to 20 test samples and combine them and then test that aggregate sample. And if it comes back negative, you can assume that all 10 or 20 tests were negative. But if it comes back positive, then you go back and you do individual test or analysis on the 10 to 20 samples you collected. That is one way that you can accelerate getting the test results back and getting that period between when a test is taken and when test results are recorded, shortened. And that's critical because the whole purpose of doing these viral tests is to allow people to take actions immediately that are in their best interest and in the best interest of their colleagues and friends and family. And so if you've got this time lag, you're really not getting the healthcare efficacy out of the tests that we expect.
Thank you, Senator. Another question for you. This comes from Kayla. What can you tell us about the new Exit 3 that has received funding?
Yeah, I think the timeline for that bill is a little bit more accelerated than the one for the Hilton Head bridges. What I've heard in regard to Hilton Head bridges, we're looking at a 2022-2023 construction schedule. I think the one in Jasper County, the Exit 3, it's going to be more quick or on a shorter time frame because you've got a significant participation by private investors in there. And the private investors are already putting infrastructure in place. And now that this has been approved, they can move forward with that private capital, and then the public dollars can then be layered on top of that. So I think what you're seeing in regard to the Exit 3 in Jasper County is something within the next year, really, being able to foresee something happening.
Next question comes from Scott, and knowing that the passion that you have for the Jasper County Port, what's the latest on that?
I mean, this particular project being approved is huge in that regard, and it's almost like a chicken and egg kind of a thing. If you have development there in Jasper County, if you have manufacturing, then the need for the Jasper Port becomes more manifest. And so, as Savannah, maxes out its capacity over time, it's important that we start to put the infrastructure in place for Jasper County. That is still moving forward. We're going to get another appropriation in this year's budget in September to continue the permitting activities. We continue to work on Jasper County with the infrastructure. And what we're talking about there with infrastructure is rail connectivity to get Norfolk Southern and CSX, get those rail corridors down to the port site, making sure improvements are made to I-95. Not a lot of people know this, Bill, but we've gotten approval from DOT. They're going to widen and improve I-95 to 6 lanes, 3 lanes in each direction, beginning at the state line and continuing up through Walterboro. And so that's going to be happening in the next year or so. So focus on the infrastructure aspects to make sure that the Jasper Port, when it becomes online, we've got the infrastructure there to handle it.
Senator, next question is, what can we as residents here do to help you continue to serve as effectively as you do?
I mean, I think just, it's important to, and people don't understand this, but, or maybe they do. Things don't get decided in Columbia, and money doesn't get spent in Columbia based on a rational assessment of what the best expenditure is. I mean, it really depends upon your experience, your knowledge of the system, the seniority we develop. It used to be that Beaufort County had that back in the 70s and the 80s. Jimmy Waddell was Senate Finance Chairman. And so a lot of money got sent back to Beaufort County. But in the time since then, Beaufort County hasn't gotten its fair share when it comes to schools, roads and bridges, economic development, things of that nature. You're starting to see that turn. In fact, it is turning. This $120 million grant from the State Infrastructure Bank to Beaufort County is yet another example of how our delegation is really at the table up there in Columbia. So I would say just continue to support the delegation, continue to have your voices heard. I'm looking forward to the next 10 years, Bill. Some very exciting things for Beaufort County, and we've got the right team in place up there to make it happen.
Senator, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Your updates are always so thoughtful and helpful, and your leadership within the state is terrific, and we appreciate the boots on the ground. So thanks again for great representation.
Thanks for having me, Bill. Y'all have a great day.
You do the same. Thanks, Senator. Our next speaker this morning, we're going to shift over to Dwayne Parrish. And Dwayne, as you probably recall, is the Director of South Carolina Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. Welcome, Dwayne.
Good morning, Bill. Hope you had a great July 4th weekend.
Thank you. Yes.
So give you an update on hotels and occupancy as usual, and then some of the other things going on. So there, as of yesterday, there are now 24 hotels that are closed in South Carolina. Of that 24, we've identified 12 that are closed for non-COVID related reasons, renovations and the like. Of that 24, 10 of those are located in downtown Charleston. That is, again, down from a high of 575 at one point. Hotel occupancy statewide for the week ending June 27th, which was the Saturday before July 4th weekend. For the United States, occupancy was 46.2%. For the Southeast, it was 48.4%. And for South Carolina, it was 56.8%. We continue to maintain about a 10% advantage over the U.S. and about an 8% advantage over the Southeast. Leading the way in South Carolina was Hilton Head. Congratulations, at 75.2% occupancy. Myrtle Beach followed closely behind at 71%. And then the Isle of Palms and Mount Pleasant part of the northern part of Charleston was at 70% also. So at last week's press conference, the governor mentioned some things about sports teams. The Blowfish, which is an amateur team outside of Columbia, actually located in Lexington, came up as well about attendance, fans, and the like. There's a lot of different types of sports that are going on this time of year. The governor's office realizes that. Difficult to sort of be addressed in every single executive order. So I would look for an announcement, if not today or tomorrow, but certainly by Friday at the latest, for some clarification on what that is in regard to spectators being in sports. So sort of stay tuned for that. In the meantime, there's obviously youth baseball, amateur baseball, Pony League or American Legion, and a variety of different other things going on around the state. Obviously, from a tourism perspective, this does fill up some hotel rooms, the visiting teams, and is a big part of what our tourism in the state is, sports tourism. So stay tuned for that and look to hear some more information. State agencies started work back in their offices this week. It's a little bit different it's up to sort of each agency how they handle it, but the short version is those that may not have childcare certainly can still work from home. Those that are in a high risk category can certainly still work from home. And others who are just for other reasons taking care of someone who may be quarantined or whatever the case may be, also working from home. But it is good to be back in the offices, and we do have people back in there this week, and that's the case from a statewide perspective. The Palmetto Priority Program, that is a program that the South Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association started a couple of weeks ago to essentially, within that, if you wanted to sign up for it as a restaurant, you essentially agree to a pledge among a number of things you agree to. One is your staff to wear masks. There's about a 20 to 30 minutes of training time on that as well. And while most restaurants already have their own plan in place, in addition to the guidance issued by South Carolina Accelerate SC, this is one where you actually pledge to do these things, including have staff wearing a mask, and then receive a decal and also show up on the Palmetto Party website. As of yesterday, there's over 1,800 restaurants have signed up around the state. The program has rolled out in less than 2 weeks and signed up over 1,800 members. In our state parks, just closing out the fiscal year at the end of June, had our best month ever in June. Camping and cabin occupancy is up anywhere from 20 to as much as 100% at some state parks. Obviously, it's become pretty clear that people like to be outdoors, like to be the ability in around a campground or a cabin in a state park. Our day use is up dramatically. Camping and cabins are up. I have read where national sales of RVs are up as well, and that continues and has showed up in our state parks. To give you a perspective on it, we closed parks in mid-March and all the way through the end of April, reopened May 1st. So we lost about 6 weeks of revenue of some of our prime time for the spring, a little over $2 million. The months of May and June, we made up all of that money, which is phenomenal. I mean, we expected to have to ask the legislature to shift some money around from something else, but because of that, we did not have to do that. So kudos to the park staff. We reopened May 1st, started wearing masks from day one, still are in our parks. And I think that's indicative. People have felt safe going there, and it certainly shows in our numbers. And lastly, I thought I'd conclude with the most recent traveler sentiment from Longwoods. Longwoods International studies this every week. And I thought I'd give some of a few of the bullet points from that. As you can imagine from all the COVID reporting, particularly lately in the majority of states having increases in cases. Some states have paused on some of their reopening phases. This has had an impact, and particularly on the publicity side, it's had an impact on travelers. So 76% of travelers now report changing plans. That's up from 69% 2 weeks ago. The percentage of American travelers who now feel safe traveling outside their community has fallen to 41%. This is a low since mid-May. The percentage of Americans feeling comfortable dining in local restaurants and shopping in local stores also declined from 47% 2 weeks ago to 40% this week. On the positive side, concerns about the economy greatly impacting travel plans is still relatively low at 20%. And then not surprising, and what we've talked about before, that given the current state of things, regional drive travel and familiarity with the destination and for visiting family and friends is number one, followed by leisure travel, and those two dominate travel plans in the near term between now and the end of the calendar year. So, Bill, pending any questions, that concludes my report.
Thanks, Dwayne. We have a question here from Tom this morning. You mentioned there are 24 hotels that are closed and 10 are in downtown Charleston. What is the reason for the 10 remaining closed in downtown Charleston?
Of the 10, when I looked at it, I think 5 of them are undergoing renovations. They had closed down obviously it's a great time for a hotel to do renovations when occupancy is very low, which it was back obviously starting in April, late March and early April. So half of those have closed for renovation reasons. I believe there were 2 that were closed for, I don't remember the other reason. And I think 3 have just decided not to reopen yet. A little quick background: downtown Charleston occupancy in the summer is not where the higher occupancy rate is. It's typically toward the beaches. Kiowa, Seabrook, Isle of Palms, Sullivan's Island, and Isle of Palms are where the higher occupancy are during the summer. So my sense is, and I have not talked to those, but I have folks who've spoken to them, that they're simply waiting for occupancy to get back up to in the downtown area to get back up toward more normal levels before they reopen. In regard to the other 3.
Okay, Dwayne, another question. If looking through your silver ball, what do you predict for the fall in South Carolina?
Oh boy, if I had a crystal ball, I could get rich, but it's such a fluid situation. It changes, can literally change from week to week. But my sense is that as I just mentioned, the sentiment on travel will have an impact somewhat. Several things have become very apparent recently, and one is that there's still a significant portion of the public who's just not willing to travel yet. Number 2 is outdoor recreation is sort of leading the way in terms of travel. And by that, the beach is a big plus. And it's not just the beach. We've seen increased activity in state parks on all of our lakes around the state. So outdoor recreation with water combination, water feature of some sort, has clearly become the preferred place to be. I think short-term rentals will continue to do well as we go through the rest of this year. A lot of those are located near water. They also offer more square footage. More square footage is a big plus today, and that's where short-term rentals typically have an advantage over a hotel. But I sort of, it's certainly my hope that we'll continue in this crawl, walk, run process to move through the walk process as we go through the rest of the year. I see it increasing, but I do see some, I don't see it a straight line increasing on the way up. I do see some dips in the line. I think you may see that based on the national media surrounding all the increasing cases recently. So I would look for those occupancy numbers that I reported a few minutes ago to have a slight dip in the next few weeks. Beyond that, it's just difficult to tell.
Dwayne, thank you. And that's all the questions we have for you today. We appreciate you being back with us and the terrific updates you provide for us on a weekly basis. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Have a great week.
Thanks. You too. As we move forward, I'd certainly remind everybody to, if you have any questions, continue submitting those. We're having some really good questions come in this morning, and you can do that by tapping on the chat box and submitting your question. Our next speaker this morning is the Mayor of Bluffton, Lisa Salka, and with her also, I think we have Deputy Town Manager Scott Marshall. But Mayor Salka, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry I've missed the last couple of meetings, but I catch up on your emails you send after. I do have Scott with me, so I'll let him really fill in on more that's going on in the town. I did want to do a little more than just mask. We heard from a lot of people on the mask ordinance, but I tell you, since we passed it, our business community is thankful for the most part. And we are seeing a lot of the signage that you have sent out, as well as what we've created. We created our own little flair with our logo and a little bit, but very similar to yours, Bill. And thank you for putting that out. Seeing the signs up, having people that have masks, handing them out. And I think, if we can just be patient for the next 7 to 10 days, I think we'll see a response in it. As soon as we pass the ordinance, thank goodness for Senator Davis, if he's still on the phone, he set up those screenings. So give us, we're going to see a spike because there are more people being tested. And if we can just see the difference in the next 2 weeks forward for the next 45 days, our hopes are we'll see a little steady decline. And that is just another step of getting back to whatever our normal is. We still do Zoom. We're trying to think about working virtually, and Scott can fill you in on that. We're doing a lot of projects. The rooftop to the dock at Church of the Cross at the end of that street is up, and it's starting to look like a real community dock now. So plans are by the end of August that's finished, and I hope I see some of y'all out 6 feet away from each other, just taking a view of what we've accomplished there. I'm gonna just see if there are any questions. Scott, you can fill in. I appreciate you letting us get on. It's a great place to share updates, and again, thank you for all you're doing. So Scott, I
Mayor,
see you. You're up. Yes, sir.
Question for you here. Well, not a question, but a comment. First of all, the community dock, congratulations on that. I've seen pictures and been by it, and it's looking terrific. So congratulations on that. And before Scott goes, I know you share the same passion and enthusiasm that many do about Exit 3. You want to share anything about that?
Well, thank you. Yes, I always tell people Bluffton is the dash. That's where it all happens. And we sit between two amazing projects now. So we continue to be that middle part of the equation, the dash, like I like to say. Exit 3 probably is going to be a game changer for Bluffton. Maybe a little more than the bridge. The bridge, we just knew our neighbors really needed it, and we're very happy to support it for traffic flow. But Exit 3 is going to be the connector that will get our Bluffton Parkway out to another exit at some point. But we had to start somewhere and work our way toward Bluffton. I agree with Senator Davis. It's just yet another reason that port needs to occur. I had been following the I-95 widening. He is right. It's all starting to be, we're all being treated equitably now, I feel. And I think it is our delegation that's in Columbia that reminds them how to spell Bluffton, Beaufort, Hilton Head, that we are in South Carolina and that we are voters. And I think it's paying off. So I called Mayor, told him how great it was. I think we'll see it soon. I think they're probably out there now starting to dig something. And it's just going to let us look at the Bluffton Parkway as where does it continue to connect through our neighboring county.
Well, congratulations on that too. And I know your work and dedication has really helped to bring that to fruition. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for you too. We're all in it together.
That's right. Scott, I know you're on, and love to hear a few things from you this morning.
Well, good morning, Bill. Thanks for having us this morning again. Mark is taking some well-deserved vacation time this week, so you are stuck with me. So we love to lead the region in Bluffton, and one of the things we're not happy about leading the region in right now is COVID numbers. And so kudos to our town council who last week took some positive action in putting together and passing an ordinance to require face coverings in public. And as the mayor mentioned, we've had, by and large, a very positive response to that ordinance. We took some action on the staff side. The mayor signed a letter, and we sent that letter to all of our business license holders, and we included a frequently asked questions list when we did that, because there are mask ordinances now in effect in all the jurisdictions within Beaufort County, but they're all a little different. And so we felt it would be helpful to explain in a very succinct manner what the Bluffton ordinance entails. And we've had a pretty positive response to that. We have an emergency ordinance right now that is in effect until July 18th that allows us to modify our operations. So on the 14th, at our next council meeting, we're going to present an emergency ordinance to extend that to allow us to continue those modified operations. And when I say modified operations, what I mean is, by and large, we still are not doing business within our town facilities. We are doing business virtually wherever possible. For instance, we are holding municipal court every week, but we are doing that virtually. And for the attorneys and clients who need to appear physically, they can appear physically, but it is outside on the porch where it's a socially distanced, safe way to conduct business. And so that seems to be going very successfully. Our parks remain open, but our playgrounds remain closed, consistent with CDC direction. And all of these items are enabled through our emergency ordinance, which again, we will present to council for consideration on Tuesday to extend that for another 60 days or until an ordinance is passed to rescind the current emergency ordinance. That's what's going on from my perspective, Bill, but I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thanks, Scott. Question here from Julie, and Julie's asking if there's any idea when the playgrounds might reopen.
We do not have a formula in mind for when the playgrounds will open, but what I will tell you is that we watch the numbers, and we watch in terms of the number of positives, and we look at trends. And when we start to see a trend where we've had a 2-week constant diminishment of COVID positive numbers, then we'll begin to take a look at opening up playgrounds and such. But right now, our concern is with public safety and the ability to keep those facilities clean and sterilized and consistent with CDC recommendations. Right now, we still feel like the best course of action is to keep the playgrounds closed.
Thanks. Another question from Jeff. Is the Bluffton Dog Park open?
The Bluffton Dog Park is open, consistent with all the other parks, public parks within the town being open. So the answer to that is yes, but we ask that our patrons respect the social distancing measures that the governor has recommended and that public health experts also are asking us to abide by.
Very good. Scott, thank you. Appreciate you being on, answering the questions and the update. Continue the great work there in Bluffton.
You're welcome. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. We'll shift now to Hilton Head Island, and we have with us representing the town of Hilton Head Island today is the Assistant Town Manager, Josh Gruber. Josh, glad to have you on, and welcome.
Good morning, Bill. Thank you for having me on. I've been given pretty clear instructions to keep my comments brief, and so I will follow those strictly. But you're going to hear a couple common things in my comments today. The first one that I wanted to touch on is with regards to the status of the town's face mask regulations. Town Council passed an ordinance back on June 29th requiring the mandatory wearing of face coverings anytime somebody is in an indoor commercial establishment. And I want to say thank you to both the residents and visitors of the island, because what we are seeing at this point in time is near 100% compliance with that requirement. We've got staff that are out in the community doing spot checks in a number of businesses, the grocery stores, the pharmacies, businesses where you tend to see a lot of people at, and what they're seeing is almost everyone voluntarily complying with that requirement. And so we're deeply appreciative of that. To the extent that we see people that do not have a face covering on, we've been making contact with them, educating them about the requirements. The majority of the time, those people are then complying. But we are prepared, if necessary, to go forward and issue citations for people that do not comply with the ordinance. But thankfully, we're not at a point yet where we've had to do that. So again, want to say thank you to everybody who's already pitching in, helping out the community by voluntarily complying with that requirement. The other item I wanted to cover this morning is the July 4th holiday weekend. Just a comment that we thought it went very well. I know at the outset of this meeting, you indicated, you highlighted the partnership that we had this year with the Deep Well Project, and we were very pleased at how that turned out. So I want to give a big kudos and thank you to them. They were able to organize a team of volunteers to get out on the beach the morning of July 5th and help us clean up any of the remnants that remain from the previous night's festivities and help ensure that the beach was restored back to the condition that we want the public to see it in. And so a huge thank you to them. I also do want to take an opportunity to reference an alleged assault that we understand may have occurred on the beach sometime over the weekend as well. Obviously, that's very concerning to us. We do understand it's being actively investigated. To the extent that it's proven to be correct, obviously we want to condemn those actions and very strongly, in that they do not represent who we are as a community and the values that we stand for. And so we're very cognizant about keeping an eye out on those things and then responding to them in a swift and appropriate manner. So again, keeping my comments short, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, Josh. We have a question for you, and this question comes from Tim. And Tim is asking what the status of the Celebration Park is and if any idea on when it might open.
We are on track. The current contract calls for completion right around Labor Day. Obviously, there are things like weather delays and other things that could come up. So there might be a couple of weeks in there where we might see a delay in terms of the opening. But right around Labor Day is when they're scheduled to complete the park. And we're hoping to have it open at least for some limited public use shortly after that. We've been in talks prior to the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic about having a large community celebration to really recognize how significant opening up that park is for our community. However, with everything that's going on right now, it's not really appropriate. So we're kind of looking at what other alternatives are out there. But we are excited about being able to have it open to the public sometime here in the very near future.
All right, thank you, Josh. Next question comes from Kelly. And Kelly is asking what the parking looks like for Hilton Head Island beaches these days.
So our parking is what we would see kind of in lines with this time of year. On the weekends, there's a significant amount of demand for parking and there's only so much supply. And so we do appreciate people's understanding. For the last 2 years now, we've had overflow parking, particularly for the Caligny Beach parking area at the University of South Carolina Beaufort's Hilton Head campus. And we've provided a shuttle from that location, and we are very pleased with the number of people that are taking advantage of that remote parking opportunity and then riding the shuttle to get down to the beach. So it's going very well. It's what we would see this time of year. It's also a great opportunity to remind people that we have an active parking study that's going on right now. On the town's website, there's a survey that's opened up to the public in terms of providing comments and feedback about observations on parking, thoughts, concerns, desires to see for the future. And hopefully in working with our consultants, we're going to be able to come forward with a comprehensive parking plan for all of our beach access areas.
Josh, the last one is a statement, not necessarily a question, and that comes from Chris. And Chris has said, "Thank you for your leadership and what the town did to with the trash during the July 4 holiday on the beaches." So they're saying thank you for that. And with that, Josh, I'll say thank you for being with us. And to our listeners this morning, usually we get the opportunity to hear from Town Manager Steve Riley and Town Manager Mark Orlando. This morning we got a chance to hear from both Deputy Town Managers, Josh Gruber and Scott Marshall. And I think that you'll probably agree with me that we're fortunate to have both of those gentlemen in the number 2 slots representing both towns, and they're working very hard on behalf of Bluffton and the town of Hilton Head Island each and every day. So, Josh, thank you. And Scott, if you're still on, thank you as well. Have a great day, guys.
Have a great one.
Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to shift to DHEC, and back with us again this morning is Dr. Michael Katka for an update. Dr. Katka, welcome.
Thank you very much, and thanks again for the opportunity to speak. So as of yesterday, for the past week, we're reporting 8,793 confirmed and 14 new probable cases. This brings the total number of people with the disease in South Carolina, including confirmed and probable cases, to a total of 47,352. For Beaufort County, this includes 402 new confirmed cases and 1 probable case in the past week, for a total of 1,615 confirmed and 5 probable cases for the county. Beaufort County, like many counties in South Carolina right now, has seen an increased incidence of cases. For the Hilton Head zip codes 29926 and 29928, 118 new cases have been identified for a total of 372 cases. For the Bluffton zip codes 29909 and 29910, 150 new cases were reported for a total of 531 cases. Unfortunately, we're also reporting 105 additional COVID-19 related deaths in the state in the past week. This brings the total number of people who have passed away from the virus to 838. There's also been 8 probable deaths reported due to COVID-19. There have been 4 additional confirmed deaths reported in Beaufort County individuals for a total in the county of 22 deaths. 1 probable death has also been reported in Beaufort County. So we continue to see accelerated growth of cases in South Carolina and several states across the country. And while cases have risen dramatically, deaths from COVID-19 have not risen at the same level. This may be partially due to the fact that we are seeing increased cases in lower age groups, lower risk groups, which includes the younger age groups. However, we also know that death numbers tend to lag behind the rise in cases, so we may soon see a rise in the number of deaths. Once these trends start, they're slow to reverse. We saw a slow rise in the number of cases, and bringing them back down again will take time. So it's important that we continue to take the steps that will reduce the transmission. The testing is one of those important steps. It allows us to identify cases and alert those who may be at risk of infection so that they can avoid spreading it to others. However, we must practice the daily preventive actions that ensure cases are not spreading, even when someone is not showing symptoms and has not been identified as a possible contact to a case. I think we all know those basic steps now are practicing appropriate social distancing, wearing face coverings while in public, and practicing good hand washing. These steps will help prevent new cases when they're faithfully practiced. So for more information on COVID-19 and especially information about testing, we have information about testing sites offering COVID-19 testing, as well as our mobile pop-up clinics offering testing on our website, scdhec.gov/COVID-19. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Keck. And the first question comes from Eleanor. And Eleanor is asking, what is the possibility of doing group testing like I've been reading about in other places?
I'm not entirely sure what the group testing refers to, if that's the pooled testing that we talked about earlier. The pooled testing is where you test many samples at the same time to make it more efficient. We've talked with our public health lab about that. Unfortunately, our cases, we have too many cases right now to make that efficient. We would like to get to that point at some point, but unfortunately, with the number of positive cases that we're seeing, we would wind up having to retest too many samples to really make it efficient at this time. If group testing is referring to testing various groups who may be at risk, we help facilitate testing through our testing branch in DHEC, and that can be reached through our website. There's on the website, there's actually a link that takes you to suggesting a testing site.
Okay, thank you. Another question, are the high numbers, such as over 100 positives yesterday, due to the mass testing we did on the island on June 25 and 29?
It certainly could be. The mass testing is going to obviously identify more cases. It's hard to directly link it back to specific events. Unfortunately, the data is not collected that way. We don't have the information on individual testing events. So, but when we do have the mass testing events, we do see a rise in the number of positives.
Dr. Kaka, thank you as always. Your information is certainly timely and informative. And thanks for being with us again today. We'll look forward to talking to you next week. Thank you. We'll shift now to the Senior Area Manager for the SBA, and William Furman, a caller that we've heard from several weeks that always has very worthwhile information to share. So, William, it's all yours.
Hey, good morning. Thanks, Bill. It's good to be here. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been on, I think. And things just continue to change and evolve. PPP continues to evolve. You know, I left the office on June 30th, which was the last day of the original PPP application window. You know, I was going to take a few days off. I thought I was going to catch my breath and come back and you know, PPP application process would be over. Well, you know, I'm on leave, and I got a news flash that it has been extended to August the 8th. So SBA is back in or still in the PPP loan business. So just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. If there are any businesses that did not apply for PPP, there is still an opportunity to do so. Definitely would not wait on that. I would go ahead and get my application in if that's the case. Now, most local lenders that I've talked to have stopped taking PPP applications. They're really shifting more towards getting ready for the Ppp Forgiveness. But there are some alternatives. You know, if you're seeking a PPP loan and your bank is no longer participating, probably the best thing to do would be just to shoot me an email and I can help you with that. My email address is william.furman@sba.gov. And again, I'll be happy to help. There's currently somewhere around $130 billion remaining in PPP funding. Excuse me. You know, still have a lot of money. The enemy is time. So we're, you know, again, August 8th is the deadline on that. So you want to go ahead and get that in. And it's the August 8th, your application would have to be approved by August 8th. It's not just getting an application in by then. So that's an important fact as well. I do have just some updates and reminders. You know, this thing's been going on for a while now. So just want to kind of regroup a little bit. And I'm just going to go through a few things to make sure people are up to speed or remember some of these requirements. But there are, SBA and Treasury did issue 2 applications for PPP forgiveness. There is what we're calling an EZ version, and then there is the regular version. Businesses should start looking at the EZ version to see if they can qualify to file under that version of the forgiveness application. So that application applies to borrowers that are self-employed or have no employees, or did not reduce the salaries or wages of their employees by more than 25%, and did not reduce the number of hours of their employees, or experienced reductions in business activity as a result of health directives related to COVID-19, and did not reduce the salaries or wages of their employees by more than 25%. Now, you can go online, Treasury homepage, SBA homepage, and you can find these forms. And I would highly encourage you just to go ahead and do that. Take a look at them. There is the actual form, and then there's a separate document for the instructions. So just go ahead and take a look at that. And even, you know, so you can try to stay ahead of the curve a little bit on forgiveness. And so when should a business submit their forgiveness application? And so this is important. SBA has not given lenders instructions on how they will be reimbursed for forgiveness. So I'm not encouraging businesses to apply until lenders receive their instructions. If you're a business and you submitted an application to your lender, that lender cannot do anything with it until SBA issues those instructions. So, just be patient, sit tight. Your lender, I'm sure, will be communicating with you as well. Keep in mind that you have 10 months after the end of the covered period to actually submit your application, so you have time. But one thing I also want to stress is that SBA does not want businesses to wait until the end of the covered period to apply for forgiveness. The best scenario is that we are going to have these requests that are spread out. So if you're still in a covered period, but you've used all of your funding and you're ready to submit your forgiveness application, as soon as SBA issues those instructions to the lenders, I would encourage you to go ahead and submit that application. You don't have to wait until the end of your covered period. Loans are deferred for 6 months, so keep that in mind. We've had some changes, as you probably know, but I'm going to run through this real quickly. The 8-week loan forgiveness covered period has been extended to 24 weeks. Loans made before June 5th have the option to use the 8 weeks or 24 weeks. Those loans made after June 5th is just a straight 24-week covered period. Businesses do not have to notify lenders or SBA if they have the 8-week covered period, to convert that over to 24 weeks. That's just something you will do when you apply for forgiveness. Short of having mass layoffs, I don't see any reason why a business would not use all of their PPP loan for payroll. So the loan was based on 10 weeks of payroll. Now you have up to 24 weeks to use it. So that takes a big burden off there. This also allows sole proprietors to use all their funds for payroll when they may not have had qualifying non-payroll expenses. So that helps those sole proprietors as well. The requirements to use 75% of payroll has been reduced to 60%. It's also been clarified that this is now in proportion to non-payroll cost. One thing, another thing I keep hearing confusion about is the idle advance, and just don't forget that the idle advance will be deducted from your PPP forgiveness. And so just a quick example on that. If you have a PPP loan for $100,000 and all of that, you've met all the qualifying factors and all of it is going to be forgiven, and you have an idle advance of $10,000, that idle advance is going to be deducted from your PPP forgiveness, and you're going to end up with a balance on your PPP loan of $10,000, which would represent that idle advance. So that is a rule. It is in place, but still talking to a lot of people that don't realize that. Finally, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Portal is still open. Keep in mind, this is a direct loan from SBA that provides working capital. The maximum loan is currently $150,000. It does have an interest rate of 3.75%, has a term of up to 30 years. It has a grant component, which I just mentioned, of $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. And the application window is officially open until December 21st. Now, I don't know that funding will be available until December 21st. I kind of doubt that. So if you're interested in an economic injury disaster loan, you need to go ahead and apply. And I guess that's my largest takeaway from today. If anybody on the call is has not applied for either PPP or EIDL, and you're thinking about applying, go ahead and do it. You don't need to wait any longer. You need to go ahead and get that in. And so that's just kind of a brief overview of where we are today. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
Thanks, William. We have a question from Linda, and Linda is asking, where do we find the PPP Easy form?
Okay, if you just go to the easiest way for me to tell you that is just go to sba.gov. There is a banner at the top of our page in reference to COVID-19, and you just click that banner and you will see all the information about the SBA disaster loan programs.
All right, thank you. Another question, can we pay back the idle advance?
Ultimately, you're going to be paying that back. I would not confuse matters until you go ahead and complete your PPP forgiveness. And once that's done, you can determine the exact amount that does have to be repaid. And you are absolutely able to repay that in one lump sum if that's what you would like to do. Remember that PPP loan is interest of 1%. The term on that is either going to be 2 years or 5 years, depending on when you received your PPP loan. But just with the activity that SBA has going on right now, especially with economic injury disaster loans, I would not attempt to repay that idle advance at this time. Just wait until you complete your forgiveness application. And then if you end up with a balance, you can pay it. If you desire, you can pay that in one lump sum.
William, that's going to do it for this morning. Thank you for your information, and we always appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.
Okay, have a great day, William. Next, we have our the Chamber's own Vice President of Public Policy, Hannah Horn. And Hannah's going to provide an update, but one other thing that if you didn't know, today's Hannah's birthday. So you can send Hannah birthday wishes all day long. Hannah, happy birthday, and thanks for joining in.
Thank you, Bill, so much. It's the 25th anniversary of my 21st birthday. So do the math on that. Yeah. Hi, everybody, and good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. A lot of information so far. I'm just going to wrap up what I'm working on here for the Chamber. And it sounds more like a category from Jeopardy. It's called Loans, Labor in the Legislature. So you ask Alex for the $2,000 category. We'll go with this and be quick. On the loan category side of things, as always, William does a great job boiling down what's happening with PPP and EIDL. I won't go through all of that. Great information there. William really, again, just an expert on that, and he has just been such a great partner with us. Again, the deadline has extended on that until August the 8th. And again, that is processing your application. So any business, I suspect most businesses, if you are going to get a PPP loan, you already have, you know that they're available, you kind of know what the terms are. However, there may be some businesses that start to come back online that perhaps didn't think that they, like movie theaters, for example, a few of those businesses that might not have been able to satisfy that payroll expense, a reason for getting that loan, but perhaps maybe can now. So look at that and again, weigh and balance whether or not that's something that would be good for your business at this point. There is, I should mention, added transparency to the PPP loan program. Just in the last couple of days, the government has actually released a list of those businesses that receive loans in excess of $150,000. And by the way, that was about 86% of the businesses were less than that. So again, a lot of small businesses helped, but those businesses are listed by name that received more than that. Also, the EIDL grant still available. That is a lot of help to a lot of businesses to receive. I think it's like $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. It's, as William said, it does interface with the PPP loan. So make sure that you know what the terms are and whether or not that would either fold in or you could just independently get that and be able to use it towards your business. Do want to mention that we're watching what is being affectionately called P4, which would be the fourth round of stimulus. There's a pencil to paper on that proposal right now, actually in Washington. We're hoping that that piece of legislation will actually target the businesses that in sectors that have been hit the hardest by COVID, and that will take all of the best from the previous rounds of stimulus and put it into this next bill and be able to move forward to, again, help those industries hardest hit. To the next category now, labor. There is expanded unemployment benefits for those who have either both exhausted the 20 weeks of regular unemployment and the 13 weeks of pandemic unemployment. So if you have exhausted both of those folks could be eligible for an additional 10 weeks of unemployment benefits. I've put a link on our COVID resource page to a video tutorial that would actually take you step by step through applying for those expanded benefits. I just want to mention, got some new numbers. Unemployment in May was at 12%. Boy, that's a tough number to swallow. Speaking of unemployment, President Trump signed an executive order in the last couple of weeks that I know that our local businesses have been watching very closely, and whether or not that could be changed or reformed or relaxed in any way. What it did was it banned issuing visas to a lot of our seasonal workforce workforce, J1, which are a lot of the seasonal workers that come in that are from an education institution. So, a college student coming to intern, for example, J1s, as well as our H-2B visas. So that legal immigration process was cut off. I can see the reasoning behind it. Didn't want foreign workers getting those American jobs. However, we know that even in our best employment situation, we still have unfilled jobs that require those H-2Bs and J1s to come in. And two, you're building that talent pipeline with those J1s that are coming in for internships. So we're continuing to work on that particular issue in the labor market. The youth apprenticeship program here in South Carolina, we're still working with SC apprenticeships. And if there are any businesses or business owners that are listening in on this call, I would love to hear from you on taking on either high school, Hilton Head High School or Bluffton High School student that could come and work in your business as an apprentice to learn what it is that you do specifically in hospitality, food, beverage, travel, tourism. From the legislature now, I appreciate the comments of Senator Tom Davis. They have been at work in Columbia on several 1 to 2 day sessions. Several things have come up here in the last couple of weeks that came out of Columbia in a 1 day session. Back in the last couple of weeks, the state was given $1.9 billion in CARES Act dollars to spend, and the legislature came back. They appropriated $1.2 billion of that. Among the things that they paid for are things they appropriated towards education, broadband expansion, replenishing the unemployment trust fund. There's still a little bit left to work on. One thing they did not do, which was disappointing to our business community as well as the state chamber and other chambers around the state, is that they did not pass business liability protections. So those businesses that fear that either a customer or an employee could come back and litigate as a result of COVID-related injury or exposure, there are none of those protections in place at the moment. So we will continue to work with our state delegation, letting them know how incredibly important it is to protect our good actors, those businesses that really are trying hard to protect their employees and customers. The legislature will return for at least a couple of days in September to deal with other issues, for example, business license reform, education reform. Those bills are can still be discussed. And finally, just want to mention, put on your calendar that we are hosting the State Chamber's Grassroots Tour on August the 7th at 8 o'clock in the morning. The State Chamber would love to get the input of our local business community on those issues that they should run towards and work for our local community come next session in January. So put that on your calendar again, August 7th. We will also hear at that particular meeting from the U.S. Chamber to honor Congressman Joe Cunningham on a recent award that he got for bipartisanship in the House in Washington. Other items of note, we are hosting Google Educator Deming Bass on July the 14th with a very special seminar for our businesses on how to reach your customers online. You should have received a dedicated email on that. Please sign up and listen to what Deming has to say on how you can tweak your target digital or those customers that come across the bridge on Saturday and they're looking for what there is great to do and experience on Hilton Head Island. We're closely working with schools on the reopening strategy and any needs that they may have from our business community. Speaking of education, our junior leadership class is going to resume with an accelerated class year. The adult leadership class is going to graduate on July the 21st. Unfortunately, their year was delayed because it was cut short because of COVID, but they still did a great class project. Our leadership alumni can certainly understand how hard those class projects are, but they've installed sunscreen dispensers at some of our Hilton Head Island parks. And I finally just want to remind everybody, do not forget your taxes are due on July the 15th if you haven't already filed your taxes. And Bill, that's it for me on a birthday report.
Hannah, thank you. Great update. And as our listeners can tell, we've got a very talented staff here at the Chamber working on your behalf each and every day. So Hannah, happy birthday. Have a great day. And thanks for being with us this morning. The Chamber will continue to cut through the noise, keep the pressure on, and help achieve real results that lift our regional economy at a time when it's so sorely needed. And with that, we're going to conclude today. We look forward to talking with you again next week. And thanks you for being with us. And thanks to all of our speakers again for being with us today. Have a great day, everyone.